the next act, I don't know if you guys are here specifically for him or not, but I don't know if you guys heard of Karl Remarks. That's half the room, maybe? Which is good, which is good. You're really, I mean, you sold out the room, so I'm really excited. This is, I'm a big fan. I like share his status stuff on Facebook and all the memes and stuff. There was only one meme that I was not okay with, and that's the meme. So you did a graph sort of about food, and it was something else. All I remember is the food one, because he puts all the Arab countries on this graph, and of course he put Lebanon as the best food in the world, and he put Egypt on the same level as the UK for food. It's like, have you eaten Egyptian food? Have you eaten Scottish food? Do you know how hard that was for me? Like, I've been living here 6 years. It's only like last year where I'm like, it's like drugs. It's in my blood now. And I eat, Scotch pies all the time. And I don't know why, because it's disgusting, but I need it, Like, it's the cold. It's the cold and the darkness. And yeah, now I like it, but I don't like it, because it's nice. It's like survival. You can't put Egyptian food and Scottish food on the same level. Apart from that, your politics are great. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our next guest. It's his big stand-up debut, so you heard it here first. We're recording it as evidence. I'd like you to give a very warm welcome to Karl Sharro.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you all, especially to the 3 people that cheered when Sarah asked who came here to see me. I'm very grateful for that. Hello, Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Edinburgh is very hard for us Arabs to say. Anyway, for the other people, not the 3 people, the other people who don't know me, my name is Karl, which is not your typical Arab name. But I'm not your typical Arab. In fact, I'm not an Arab at all. I just pretend to be one for the glamour. That and the VIP treatment at the airport. It's true though, it's true. Like these days when I travel, I don't even bother packing my suitcases nicely. I just throw all the clothes in. I go to the airport. Because I know when I get there and they see my passport, see that I'm an Arab, they're going to search them so thoroughly. And the upside, they do fold them very neatly afterwards. So there are perks to being an Arab, or pretending to be one. No, but it's true, I'm an Arab, and it's tough these days. I mean, we got a glimpse of it, but there are so many stereotypes about Arabs. There's so much hostility and animosity towards Arabs, and I have to be careful how I behave in public, I don't want to do anything that shows stereotypical Arab behavior. So I have to be careful, not to introduce chemistry and physics to Western Europe. Or translate ancient Greek philosophy. Or build nice palaces with gardens all over Spain. I have to avoid those stereotypes. And speaking of stereotypes, I once wrote a joke about stereotypes that I would like to share with you here tonight. It's my own joke, I wrote it myself. So a stereotype walks into a bar. You know what they're like. Okay, you weren't meant to laugh at that one because it's leading into something else. I thought that was my worst dad joke. You're doing it very well. You didn't laugh at all. That's very good. So the problem with being a Twitter comedian, and I'm really a Twitter comedian, is you can basically write the jokes, but you can't perform them. So I have a backup plan. I thought if this doesn't work, I'm going to read you my Twitter timeline. I'm not the first person from the Middle East to hold up a scroll. Thousands of years from now, somebody's gonna find this and base a religion on it. And being a Twitter comedian, I have to tell you, I can't like respond to heckling. So if you're planning on heckling me, you'll have to give me notice 15 minutes in advance to have me prepare a response. Okay? So I love Twitter though. It's great. It's such a great medium because you meet people from all over the world and you have these great exchanges and you have all these different opinions. And I generally tend to tweet in English. But every so often, I'll say something in Arabic. And immediately, people will start unfollowing me. And I'm like, relax. Being an Arab isn't contagious. You can't catch it from the Arabic script. So that's really the purpose of my bit over here tonight. I'm here to kind of dispel these stereotypes, to coin a phrase. I'm here on a cultural bridge building mission. I'm here to kind of explain how Arabs see the West and how the West sees Arabs, but not in any profound or meaningful way. I mean, I'm gonna start with something random, like Arabic radio, Arab radio. Okay. You're familiar with radio debates over here, and you know how the setup works, right? On Arab radio, like if they're debating an issue, it could be anything. It could be like genetically modified food, or space exploration, or transgenderism. What they'll do is they get like a scientific expert and a cleric. It's like science and religion canceling each other out. That's quite a fundamental aspect of what being Arab means. And I don't want to make us sound exotic. We're all human. We're all human, but there are differences. I mean, I can see you're looking at me and you're thinking, this guy doesn't look like a performer. I know, I'm overweight. I have a big belly. I love Arab food too much. But people feel like they need to point out that to me, They come and tell me, why are you overweight, Why do you have that big belly? You have to exercise, go on a diet, lose some weight, stay fit, which is so culturally insensitive. Because I need it for the belly dancing. So I just remembered I need to look at my scroll. Don't worry, this is part of the act. There's not going to be like a nervous situation over here. But, speaking of weight, this is what I was saying. It's actually quite true. In Arab societies, your status as an Arab male is measured by the size of your belly. And in fact, in Arab armies, you can tell the rank of an officer by the size of their belly. I could have been a general. That's why my grandmother used to say to me. But speaking of Arab armies, we have to address, the politics in the Arab world, right? And a lot of people started to get interested in the Arab world because of, it was called many things, the Arab uprisings, the Arab revolutions, the Arab Spring, the Arab awakening. And people now ask me, a lot of people ask me, so whatever happened with that? What's the story? And there's actually an Arab proverb that explains it. And it goes, after the Arab awakening comes the Arab siesta. I joke, of course, but it was quite an inspiring moment, It was quite an inspiring moment. And all these people kind of with a yearning for freedom, they thought, Let's try to change these regimes that rule us. Let's try to overthrow these dictators. And I think what we subsequently discovered, that an Arab dictator is like one of those Russian matryoshka dolls, but in reverse. Like every time you get rid of one, you get a bigger one. See, you look at Egypt, they have the relatively benign Mubarak, then they get Sisi. And that's if you're lucky, Libya, you don't know who's there anymore. There's 4 or 5 dictators competing now. Other places, they're in civil wars. Yemen is being attacked by all these other countries. Bahrain had like a violent repression. So it didn't end well. And then the other thing happened. They who shall not be named, according to the BBC. The so-called Islamic State, ISIS. By the way, this is like, now there's a law, it's an obligatory thing for every Arab comedian to do a bit about ISIS. So I thought I'll do it in the beginning. I know it's going to be tense, I'm not going to lie to you, but trust me, I know what I'm doing. Okay? I'll tell you when to laugh, and then we can move on. So I'll tell you what I love about ISIS. Well, not love, it's more of an observation. ISIS, they're obsessed with Rome. It's always Rome with them. All their statements, all their proclamations, Rome is next, we're going to Rome. And it's never like Birmingham, or Lyon, or Nashville. It's always Rome. If you attack Raqqa, we're going to Rome. If you attack Mosul, we're going to Rome. And I'm like, so what? You're going to conquer Rome and reduce it to ruins? Somebody's done that before. Many people, in fact. But listen, I don't want to make it sound like there's something fatalistic or inherently dysfunctional about Arabs, or we kind of like predestined to war and violence and things like that. Because we have to admit, a lot of the problems of the Middle East and of the Arab world is because of like external intervention. There are a lot of people intervening in the region, and they keep making it worse. And it's getting really complicated, because you can't even tell who's on whose side anymore, okay? So take the US and Russia. They've been enemies for a long time, and it's got worse with Trump and all of these kinds of things. And then in Syria, they're opposed to each other, and they're fighting on different sides. They're supporting different sides. Russia was supporting the regime of Bashar al-Assad, while the US doesn't know what it's doing in Syria, but it's kind of supporting a lot of people, and it's against Russia. But in Iraq, they're both on the same side. They're both part of the coalition fighting ISIS. Iran and the United States, they're sworn enemies, and it goes way back. They're fighting each other in Syria, but in Iraq, they're on the same side. The same goes for Hezbollah. Hezbollah has had a long enmity with the United States. In Syria, they're fighting the United States. In Iraq, recently, the leader of Hezbollah and the president of the United States celebrated the same victory over ISIS on the same day. And it gets even more complicated. You get Saudi Arabia, who's simultaneously arming and bombing ISIS. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, you've all heard about what happened, recently with Saudi Arabia trying to marginalize Qatar or isolate and sanction Qatar. But they were both attacking Yemen together. Saudi Arabia supports Sisi in Egypt. Qatar doesn't support ECCC, supports the Muslim Brotherhood. But at the same time, they put all the differences aside in order to attack Yemen. And then it gets even more complicated. You have Turkey, who's the largest NATO member in the region, and it's kind of allied to the United States and the Western Axis. But at the same time, Turkey is fighting the Kurds, who are listed as terrorists by the United States and NATO and Western countries in general, while they are being supported within Syria and Iraq by the United States, NATO, who are the allies of Turkey, which Turkey is attacking on the other parts. And then you get a country like Lebanon, which was part of the Western, kind of pro-Western axis and the anti-Western axis in the Middle East. And finally, Libya is its own worst enemy. And you know, the geopolitical situation got so complicated that it started messing with our proverbs. And we Arabs love our proverbs. We need our proverbs. I'll give you an example. Like, you know, we have a proverb that goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You have that here also? So that doesn't work anymore. We've had to adjust that with some qualifiers. So the proverb now goes, the enemy of my enemy is not my friend, but could be considered my ally in an undeclared tactical alliance that extends to intelligence gathering capabilities and occasional air support. I love this stuff you have over here. Water. We don't have that. We have oil. It says here audience interaction, but I'm not going to do that. It's not really in my culture. I thought, but should I do audience interaction or not? And I thought, if I start talking to someone, I'm Arab. I'll be like, are you planning on getting married? Are you going to have kids? How's your family? And I'll get really involved. All these things with the situation in the Middle East and everything that's been happening, it's, I love when people can't see the wood for the trees, like the things that they pick up about the Middle East, So when recently, Trump visited Saudi Arabia, apparently he was photographed, doing some kind of gesture that people said this is quite an offensive gesture to Arabs, which made him appear culturally insensitive. I know. Right? And I'm like, forget about hand gestures. You know what's really offensive to Arabs? It's when you invade their countries and destroy them. But we Arabs, we're having a hard time. Let's admit it, we're having a hard time. And especially when people, after the Arab Spring and all of that, people like Westerners start patronizing us, writing all these op-eds. And maybe you Arabs aren't ready for democracy yet. And it's tough. Especially when growing as an Arab, you're always taught these things we gave the entire world civilization, we gave the world knowledge, we were a beacon of knowledge and science, and it's hard to take. It's hard to take. But I have a defense mechanism. I kind of regress. I think, 1,000 years ago, Arabs were looking at Europeans and thinking, what's making these people violent religious extremists? Anyway, look, I don't want this to be all about Arabs, right? We need to talk about you. It's quite a mixed audience. It's hard to point where the you is. Which is great, East and West, West and East, the Middle East and Europe. We go way back. We're like the Rachel and Ross of geopolitical history. And we have a saying about it, actually, in the Arab world. It goes like this. When God put Europe next to the Middle East, it was an accident waiting to happen. I respect you now for that groan. That was a test. But really, we've always wanted to be close to you, you know? We've always wanted to be close to the West. And like when Christianity first came out, we thought we need to introduce it to Europe. It'll bring us together. That worked well. But you know, let me start with some definitions. It's not good to jump into these geopolitical categories without some definition. You know, people often ask me, what really is the Middle East? And I say it's simple. It's the region between Egypt, Iran, Yemen, Turkey, and the British Museum. There's thousands of years of cultural exchange between us based on the looting of our artifacts. And I'll tell you how I feel about it. Like, when I go to a European museum and I'm looking at the exhibits, I feel like, you know when you go to a friend's house and you see a book on their bookshelves that you lent them years ago and they never returned it? That's exactly how I feel. But it's more than that. It's thousands and thousands of years of cultural exchange. We gave you the alphabet, you invaded us. We gave you science, you invaded us. We gave you algebra, you invaded us. Well, that one time we deserved it, let's face it. We gave you sugar. What is it with you and sugar, people? You're going crazy with the sugar stuff. Seriously. So we gave it to you as a gift. Sugar is great. I mean, sugar for us in the Middle East is like our second religion. Like when I hear over here, you know, we have to ban sugar, we have to tax sugar, I'm like, yeah, try putting that on in the Middle East. There'll be a revolution. And I know these people over here, that they're like, they go out all night drinking, doing shots, popping pills, doing coke. And I say, hey, Humphrey. Hey, Humphrey. I know. Have some baklava, it's great. No, man, I'm not putting that poison in my body. But I love those fantastic cultural differences. You know, the problem with having the scroll is you can tell exactly how down the line I am. But I've got 4 other scrolls in my pocket, don't worry. But I seriously, I do love those cultural differences. And I've been living here for a while, and my Western friends, they're always going like, hey, Karl, why don't you come camping with us? It's great. You'll enjoy it. I'm Lebanese. No electricity, no running water, no internet. That's not leisure for me. That's life. Those cultural differences are great, you know. I love how you're obsessed with coffee now. Westerners are obsessed with coffee. Everything has got to be this bean and that bean, and you have to get it from this place, and it has to be massaged and curated, and you have to get it from this barista who's got like a PhD in conceptual art. You're so obsessed with coffee. We Arabs don't get that because it's so 15th century for us. We did coffee a very long time ago. We invented coffee in the Middle Ages, in our medieval era. But I tell you what, we invented coffee, but we didn't invent Starbucks. And I'll tell you why. Because you just imagine a customer walking into a coffee shop, 1400 something in Baghdad, ordering the coffee. And what's your name, sir? Abu Jabir ibn Muhammad ibn Musa ibn Hussein ibn Ahmad al-Nizami. You can't fit that on a coffee cup. And I've been thinking about it for a very long time. And I've concluded that the main difference between Westerners and Arabs is that you people will queue half an hour for a falafel wrap. And we do get judged by different standards, let's admit it, right? Like, for an Arab to be considered fluent in English, you have to write a PhD. For a Brit to be considered fluent in Arabic, you can order lunch. And it's like, لو سمحت, one falafel, please. So embarrassing. You know, I told you this is my first time doing comedy, and I picked up this trick from professional comedians. They take some notes on their hand to remember what they're going to say next. And so embarrassing. I can't read my own handwriting. Does anyone here speak or read ancient Babylonian? Our relationship is so special, you know, the East and West. I mean, it's so special that now there's an entire professional class of pundits whose job it is to translate the Middle East to a Western audience. And it's fascinating. And there's actually, I was reading Genesis recently, and there's a little bit in there that explains that. Now you see why I have the scroll. It goes like this. And then God created the Middle East and said, let there be breaking news and analysis. It's true though, like we say in the region, you know, the two main exports from the region are oil and news. And I feel like, you know, God created Adam and Eve somewhere in the Middle East thousands of years ago. And the region has been dominating the news ever since. And that's what feeds this kind of obsessive punditry industry. Westerners, journalists, Western pundits, they're all studying the Arabs. But they have some great gems. They come up with some great gems, you know. They take it very seriously. And some of the things, I'm probably offending half of the room now, but it's stand-up comedy, yeah? Go with it. You'll have a chance to get back at me in the end. I love when they say things like, this particular aspect of the Middle East is complex, it's thorny, it's difficult to explain. Here's my 500-word article explaining it all. And I love when they talk about the Arabs as a unit, you know. Like, what do the Arabs think? What do the Arabs feel? As if like all 400 million of us would gather around the village square deciding things. We can't even agree on a single falafel recipe. You want us to have one view on politics? And you know, when I read like some Western journalists, like I'm reading a political article, you know, it's commentary. And I'm like, what is it about the Middle East that makes someone specify the exact shade of coffee color someone's eyes are in a political article? I mean, why does it have to be so specific? And some Western journalists and pundits, they're like so immersed in the region now that they started to have like favorite sects and ethnicities, as if they're supporting sports teams. It's like, I imagine them running into each other and going, so how did the Kurds do on the weekend? And there's nothing that thrills them more than discovering like new sects and ethnicities in the Middle East. And they go like, hey man, I was into the Mandians way before they were cool. But listen guys, we Arabs aren't faultless. I told you we're gonna turn it around, you know. Like we meet someone who's coming to cover the region, a Westerner coming to cover the region, and you're like, what? You want to cover the Middle East and you don't speak Arabic? You can't do that. Then they go away. They study Arabic for 10 years. They're ready to order lunch now. No, they study Arabic properly. They come back, and then we meet them. And we're like, what? You speak Arabic? You must be a spy. And I love all the kind of the research tools that comes with like the Western punditry industry, you know. It's like how they like move among the Arabs and learn about us, learn our ways. And you know how everybody's obsessed with driverless cars these days? Like you open a magazine, it's driverless cars this, driverless cars that. The cars are going to drive themselves in the future. And my main worry about that is how are Western journalists going to find stories about the Middle East without taxi drivers to talk to? And I'm not anti-American or anything. No, I'm really not. But I find it particularly irritating coming from American pundits when they say the artificial borders of the Middle East. And I'm like, have you seen the map of the United States? It looks like a chessboard. And you're mocking our borders? Well, we have quite the thing going with the Americans now. You know, it's such a strong relationships between the Middle East and Americans now. And I think, in fact, I think people in the Middle East should be allowed to vote in American elections. I mean, the least you could do is allow them to decide who fucks up the region next. And there's these things they do, like they come up with new traditions around this relations. Like, I don't know when this thing started that every like new US president coming in needs to rearrange the Middle East as if they're redecorating the Oval Office. Anyway, it's hard. And I tell you, I mean, I've been living with this sort of kind of being told that we Arabs and people in the Middle East, we're dysfunctional, our politics is dysfunctional, maybe we're not ready for democracy yet, and it was starting to get me down. And then 2016 happened. You know where I'm going with this. It was amazing. The first thing that happened was the referendum, the Brexit vote. And everybody was convinced Remain was going to win, right? And then, bam, the Leavers win. It's totally your fault, by the way. It's because of Western binaries. In the Arab world, we only have one choice in referendums. It can't go wrong. I mean, even if we had like a yes-no referendum in the Arab world, most people would vote inshallah anyway. So, you know, they won the referendum. And then I was watching, I was fascinated like everyone else. I was watching the aftermath. Within like a week, the pound was plummeting. The economy was stagnating. Politics was becoming dysfunctional. The country was sharply divided, which as a Lebanese person, I have no experience of. And I was watching this, and I was like, these people hate each other. You know, it's divided half and half. They hate each other. Everything is dysfunctional. How can I help? I remembered all the times the Western and UK politicians and ambassadors, and they all were helping us in our hard times. And I was like, what could we do? What could we do? Should we like organize conflict resolution workshops in Beirut and invite like leavers and remainers and try to convince them that they all like the same and they share a human bond and patronize them a little bit, or like we organize concerts in which we have like 6 children from this side and 6 children from that side, and we bring them together. It was stressing me. I wanted to pay the favor back. And then I thought, wait. I'm approaching this the wrong way. What would Britain have done in this situation? Country divided, sharply divided, 50-50, people hate each other. And it hit me. We have to partition the UK. And I was so excited about this that I called an Indian friend and a Pakistani friend, and we set to work. And we were like, you know, we'll split it roughly according to where people voted, but not exactly. Because that's what Britain would have done. And we'd call like one country Romania. And the other one, Brexitania, with the same historic attention to detail that the British Empire used when it gave our countries their names. It was time to pay back the favor. And then we thought we'd run a border and then maybe build a Berlin Wall style wall right through the middle of London, and there might have to be some population transfer. But that's the only solution. And then, the second thing, 2016 happened. No, not Arab Idol. I was watching the American elections, like everyone else. Most people were convinced Hillary's going to win, right? But then Trump started to gain some momentum. This journalist, towards like the 17-year period of the American campaign, I don't know what has to be so long. Journalists from all over the world started flocking to the United States. And the BBC started sending journalists to like Mississippi and Alabama and other places, I don't know their names. And I thought, this is something fascinating happening here. Because I heard the BBC correspondents speaking to Americans with the same patronizing tone that they normally reserve for people in the Middle East. Like, something is changing over here. And the election happens, and spoiler alert, Trump won. Wow, what a shock. And I was watching the aftermath. Within a few weeks, I was like, this is amazing. Trump has achieved the same level of hate that normally takes an Arab dictator decades in power to achieve in a few weeks. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can't get someone like Trump in the Arab world. But at least it would require a military coup. But you know what was so great? That all those American pundits who for decades had all these ready-made solutions for the Middle East didn't know what to do about Trump. They had no solutions. I was like, where are the think pieces? Where are the opinion columns? Where is Thomas Friedman to take taxis all over the America and come up with easy solutions for what's happening in America now? Just didn't happen. And then, you know when they start talking about Trump coming over here? And people said, let's stop Trump from visiting the UK. And I was, no, that's wrong. Allow him to come, but make him apply to a UK visa at a British embassy in the Middle East. And submit to the process which you got a glimpse of in the beginning. Make him get all the documents. Make him fill the application forms. And make him come to the interview. And if you don't know about the interview, it's amazing. They make you wait for hours. And then this British embassy official, who's kind of specializes in breaking people down with their patronizing air, starts interviewing you. And I'm imagining Trump in this situation. Mr. Trump, I'm doing a British accent. May I see your bank statements, please? Mr. Trump, may I see your birth certificate, please? And best of all, Mr. Trump, may I see your tax returns, please? Anyway, so I've been thinking about 2016. I've been trying to absorb all of this. It's been too much. And I've been wondering, what has really happened? And it's not just Britain. It's not just Trump in the US. France is under emergency law. Germany is jailing comedians. You see stuff like that happening all over Europe now. And I thought about it. I thought, you know what? I think maybe people in the West aren't ready for democracy yet. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've been great. Thank you very much.